One of the most common conversations I have with the clients that I'm working with is around maintaining balance between work and life. So I thought I'd share some of the key strategies that I typically recommend to getting to a place where you genuinely feel like you have balance. And I think the starting point is to actually decide for yourself what balance actually looks like. Because for each of us, that can be really different. And as we go through life, obviously, there are varying challenges that come into our world. So, clearly, when we're single and young, we've got different priorities to when we become parents. When we get to later in life, perhaps we might be looking after aging parents. At every point in our journey, what we specifically need to maintain balance is going to be unique to us. And then it's also going to be about your personality. What does a thriving life actually look like to you? If you are a 90-year-old and you're looking back on the life that you've lived, then what are the things you're going to be looking at that were signposts or indicators that you lived your best life and you were thriving? Because for me, balance is just part of that. It's making sure that we're creating enough space and time for the things that are important. Now, obviously, what's important is everything from our work to our family, our broader relationships with friends and other loved ones, our health and well-being, our ability to have food on the table and security. Obviously, there's a whole raft of needs that for most human beings, them being met is an important part of, again, feeling that sense of fulfillment and living a thriving life. Step one is to define what it looks like for you. What does balance look like or mean at this point in your journey? What might it look like down the track? And then the next choice or the next step is to then choose that living a balanced life matters to me enough to cause me to make the right choices in each moment. Because that's ultimately what it's going to come down to. You can promise yourself a bunch of things, you can negotiate things with other people, but the choice you make in every moment is ultimately going to define how well you go with maintaining this balance. So, for example, you've been promising yourself that I need to spend more time with friends. I find I'm more energized. Life's better when I hang out with my buddies. But then every time an invite comes through from a friend, you're giving yourself excuses. I'm too busy at work, or I couldn't possibly take that much time out because I want to get some work done on the weekend, for example. What are the choices that you need to make? And having discipline around those choices is going to start with you deciding that this actually matters. So, one of the most important things I've learned in life is balance is actually a prerequisite for me being healthy. So, having the mindsets and the emotional stability, the energy levels, just to be able to perform at my best in each of the roles that I perform. So, whether that's as a business owner or obviously in facilitating the services and delivery to our clients, whether that's being a good wife, being a good parent, etc. That if I get out of whack and out of balance, then my performance, if you will, in each of those areas starts to seriously drop away. So, getting into that mindset that this actually matters. Another important choice for you might be getting real about who you're choosing to work for. Now, I say this with absolute awareness that it's easier said than just to suddenly pack up your job and go somewhere else. So I get that. But if you are fundamentally working in an environment that lacks common decency and respect, and there's zero flex, and there's unrealistic or unreasonable expectations of your availability and the hours that you work. So if you're working for that kind of toxic employer, then the harsh reality is maintaining balance is likely going to be tough for you. So, are you in the right place? And then it's about what are the choices I need to make around boundaries. So, one for me that took me a long time to put in place was I no longer work on weekends. Whereas as a business owner, I spent many weekends. Now, we might say in the early stages of establishing a business that's necessary, it's worth it, and that's great for a period of time. But if that's what you do forever, then again, you're going to struggle to have that fulfilling life at the end of the day. So, what are those boundaries in terms of time and energy investment that you're willing to make? What are some of those trade offs? What won't you compromise? So, another boundary for me was assuming my children had given me enough notice, because that was something, again, at home, I had conversations so that everybody knew that there was a role they could play to help me. um, so unless I had no notice, then I just simply didn't book client engagements on the top of a performance at school or a parent teacher interview or something else that allowed me to feel like I was turning up for my kid and turning up as a parent. So make sure you are also communicating with the people in your life. So assuming you're working for a decent human being for an employer, then communicate with them openly around where you might need flexibility, whether it's occasional or on an ongoing basis. Again, engage your family in the conversation. In my case, my family sometimes hold me to account to the promises I've made to myself. Um, so as I've said, see your balance as a necessary requirement for you to be the best you and to ultimately perform. And then some of the practical strategies are to, for example, block out time for certain things in your calendar. So that might be time to think and regroup and organize myself. It might be time to go exercise, time to stop work. I have a client who sets an alarm, and when it goes off, that's it. Doesn't matter where they're up to. Um, so again, some of those strategies to help you to maintain discipline around being balanced. And then, a topic like this wouldn't be complete without commenting on, there's no doubt life is more productive and focused, and therefore there's more capacity for getting, a broader range of things into our world, and therefore having a balance of enough of everything. Because balance is not just about downtime, it's about enough of time spent in the right things. There's no doubt all of that is made easier if you're sleeping well, if you're exercising regularly, if you're eating a good diet. If you're a young parent, don't scream at me down the camera about the sleep bit. I get it. There's certain stages where that is harder to maintain. But again, sleep deprivation is a common reason. A lot of my clients really struggle to maintain their health, their vitality, and, again, it's hard for them to have the bandwidth for everything they want to do in life because they're exhausted by the time they get home from working. So, those are my tips on how to balance those work and life priorities.